The refs just handed Vegas a playoff win on a silver platter, and everyone saw it happen. What unfolded in Game 3 between the Indiana Fever and Las Vegas Aces wasn't basketball. It was highway robbery in broad daylight. The Fever were leading, fighting tooth and nail, when suddenly a series of phantom whistles completely flipped the game. A'ja Wilson throwing elbows with no calls, Aaliyah Boston getting denied a legitimate challenge, and the Aces marching to the free throw line like they owned the place. The most infuriating part, it completely overshadowed what should have been the story of the night: Lexi Hull's absolutely heroic performance while playing through serious back pain. Before we dive into this controversy that has the entire WNBA world talking, if you think the refs are ruining playoff basketball, smash that like button right now. Let me paint you a picture of what went down at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. The Fever were up, the crowd was electric, and then the third quarter happened. Aaliyah Boston tried to challenge a questionable foul call on Jackie Young. Stephanie White was literally waving for the review. The bench was ready, but the officials straight up ignored it. They wouldn't even acknowledge the challenge existed. Seconds later, Chelsea Gray buried a three-pointer. And just like that, Indiana's lead evaporated into thin air. The crowd went from roaring with excitement to gasping in complete disbelief. It wasn't just about the points on the scoreboard, it was the message being sent. The Fever had worked their tails off to earn that separation, and in the blink of an eye, all that hard work was erased by whistles and another Vegas bucket that never should have happened. But here's where it gets even more ridiculous. A'ja Wilson, the supposed face of the league and MVP candidate, was having an absolutely terrible shooting night. She went 1 for 12 in the first half. That's not a typo, 1 for 12. She finished the game 6 for 20 from the field, which is downright embarrassing for someone of her caliber. So how did Vegas stay in the game? Simple. The refs kept bailing them out. Every time Wilson threw her shoulder into Boston, nothing. Every time Vegas players flopped or threw cheap shots, crickets from the officials. Meanwhile, if an Indiana player so much as breathed on an Aces player, immediate whistle. The disparity was so obvious that social media exploded with clips breaking down every missed call, every phantom foul, every ignored challenge. What happened next would shock everyone watching. The viral video started flooding Twitter and Instagram within minutes of the game ending. Fans had receipts. Clear footage of A'ja Wilson setting illegal screens with her leg extended, no call. Alyssa Smith completely bodying Michaela Mitchell, no whistle, but Lexi Hull gets called for a foul when Wilson commits the illegal screen herself. One clip showed Smith getting a foul call without even being touched. Literally zero contact, and she's at the free throw line. The analysis videos were breaking it down frame by frame, showing how the Fever were getting hammered with no calls while Vegas was getting rewarded for flopping. It became so blatant that even neutral fans who don't usually care about the Fever or Aces were calling out the officiating disaster. The pattern wasn't just limited to Game 3 though. This has been building throughout the entire series. Game 1 saw Vegas attempting their comeback almost exclusively from the free throw line, while Indiana's physical defense was treated like they were committing crimes. The Fever would body up, play textbook defense, and somehow those possessions always ended with the Aces shooting free throws. By Game 2, it had gotten so bad that Stephanie White had to call it out in her post-game press conference. When asked about finding offensive flow, she didn't hold back, saying it's hard to find any rhythm when there's a foul call every 10 seconds and Vegas is living at the free throw line. She pointed out how they couldn't get up and down the floor, couldn't establish any momentum because the constant whistles were killing their pace. But that wasn't the whole story of Game 3. While the refs were busy handing Vegas every advantage imaginable, Lexi Hull was putting together one of the gutsiest performances in Indiana Fever playoff history. This woman wasn't even supposed to be playing. She came into the game listed as questionable with a back injury she aggravated in Game 1. Her warm-ups looked stiff, she was clearly in pain, and nobody expected her to do much more than give her teammates a quick breather. Instead, Hull dropped 16 points, grabbed 10 rebounds, dished 4 assists, blocked 2 shots, and added a steal for good measure. She shot 6 for 10 from the field, including 3 massive three-pointers that kept Indiana alive every time Vegas tried to pull away. Those 8 threes across 2 games tied a franchise playoff record from a player who could barely move without wincing. The most impressive part wasn't even the stats, it was how she earned them. Hull was diving on the floor for loose balls, boxing out players way bigger than her, chasing rebounds that should have been automatic for Vegas. There were moments when the camera caught her face twisted in obvious pain, but she kept throwing her body into plays that most healthy players would think twice about. Every time the refs tried to deflate Indiana with another phantom call, Hull would answer back with a huge shot or a crucial defensive stop. The crowd at Gamebridge recognized what they were witnessing, a player literally putting her body on the line because her team needed her. That's the kind of heart and determination that defines championship teams, and it's exactly what the Fever needed in that moment. What makes this whole situation even more frustrating is looking at the broader context of how this series has been officiated. The free throw disparity has been absolutely shocking. In critical moments when games are on the line, Vegas consistently gets the benefit of the doubt, while Indiana gets called for ticky-tack fouls that wouldn't get whistled in a regular season game, let alone the playoffs. The ignored challenge in Game 3 wasn't an isolated incident either. Multiple times throughout the series, Stephanie White has tried to use her coach's challenge, only to have officials either ignore it or claim she didn't call it in time when video evidence clearly shows otherwise. It's reached a point where fans are starting to wonder if there's something more going on here than just bad officiating. The controversy has sparked massive debates across WNBA social media about the integrity of playoff officiating. Former players and analysts are weighing in, with many pointing out that this kind of one-sided officiating ruins the competitive balance of the game. When one team can play physical without consequences while the other gets called for phantom fouls, it's not basketball anymore. It's predetermined theater. The Fever have shown they can compete with Vegas when the game is called fairly, but how are they supposed to overcome both the defending champions and the officials? That's the question everyone's asking, and nobody seems to have a good answer. Here's what really gets me about this whole mess. It's overshadowing incredible individual performances and what should be an exciting playoff series. Lexi Hull's heroic Game 3 should be the headline, but instead we're talking about refs. The Fever's resilience and refusal to quit despite facing adversity should be celebrated, but it's getting lost in controversy. Even Asia Wilson's struggles, which would normally be a huge story when an MVP candidate shoots 30% in a playoff game, barely got mentioned because everyone was too busy discussing the officiating disaster. This is supposed to be the best time of year for basketball, when the intensity ramps up and every possession matters, but instead it feels like the outcome is being decided by whistles rather than talent. The impact goes beyond just this series too. Young players watching these games are seeing that hard work and determination might not be enough if the officials decide to favor one team. Fans are getting turned off from the product when they feel like games are being manipulated. The WNBA has been growing in popularity, especially with exciting young stars bringing new energy to the league, but controversies like this threaten to undermine all that progress. When casual fans tune in for the playoffs and see this kind of blatant favoritism, why would they come back? The league needs to address this immediately before it becomes an even bigger problem. Looking ahead to Game 4, the Fever face an uphill battle. Not only do they have to figure out how to slow down the Aces when Vegas actually starts hitting shots, but they also have to overcome whatever disadvantage the officials might throw at them. The psychological toll of feeling like you're playing 5 versus 8 can't be understated. It's exhausting and demoralizing, but if there's one thing we've learned about this Indiana team, it's that they don't quit. Lexi Hull playing through severe back pain and still dominating is the perfect metaphor for this entire squad. They're fighters, and they're not going to roll over just because the deck is stacked against them. The question now becomes whether the league will do anything about this officiating crisis. Will there be accountability for the missed calls and ignored challenges? Will the refs in Game 4 be instructed to call it more fairly? History suggests probably not. The WNBA rarely acknowledges officiating controversies publicly, preferring to handle things behind closed doors. But with social media amplifying every bad call and fans becoming increasingly vocal about their frustration, ignoring the problem might not be an option anymore. The integrity of the playoffs is at stake, and everyone is watching to see how the league responds. What's particularly telling is the reaction from players around the league who aren't even involved in this series. Several have liked or shared posts calling out the bad officiating, which is unusual since players typically avoid commenting on refs to avoid fines. When even your peers are acknowledging something's wrong, you know it's reached a breaking point. The Players Association might need to step in if this continues, because at the end of the day, this affects everyone's ability to compete fairly. Nobody wants to see championships decided by referees rather than the players on the court. The saddest part of all this is that we're missing out on what could be an all-time great playoff series. The Fever and Aces have the talent and storylines to create memorable moments that fans would talk about for years. Instead, we'll remember this series for all the wrong reasons. The phantom calls, the ignored challenges, the blatant favoritism. That's not good for anybody involved, from the players to the coaches to the fans to the league itself. Basketball is at its best when the competition is pure. and the better team wins based on their performance, not based on who gets more favorable whistles. As we head into Game 4, all eyes will be on the officials. Will they clean up their act and call a fair game? Will the Fever get the same benefit of the doubt that Vegas has been getting? Or will we see more of the same one-sided officiating that has plagued this series? The Fever have proven they can hang with the defending champions when given a fair chance, but they need the opportunity to actually play basketball instead of fighting against both their opponents and the refs. If you think the Fever deserve a fairly officiated Game 4, drop a comment saying "call it fair" and make sure you're subscribed for complete coverage of what happens next in this controversial series. Because one thing's for certain, this story is far from over, and the next chapter could be even more explosive than what we've already witnessed.